August 4th. This is the third and final video in my series called, related to the fuck night images that keep coming up on my phone. They used to be night fuck. This is a continuation of the last video, which was rudely cut off. There was a lot of space because I did videos after that. I did several videos after that one. But I guess I'm I'm just being honest and communicative about this very bizarre stuff that's happening to me. And that's why it was cut off, as it has been many times in the past. When there's been plenty of storage in my phone, and remember, I do always have an SD card as well. So this is I'm resuming after being cut off. In that former video, it was called Red Lines of Fuck Night Image were Cardiograph Peaks. So now I'm going to talk about where I left off. I was talking about bullying, all the bullying and hostility that myself and my children were experiencing and encountering suddenly in our neighborhood, especially at the schools, the local elementary schools, the community centers, and anywhere we went in the neighborhood, and as well as the wider area, and anywhere in Ontario. We are experiencing a lot of hostility, and I was being bullied. My kids are being bullied. I just felt like, as I mentioned before, I felt like I was being treated. I was being treated like a security threat. I can tell. I've got it all written down, and it was something I've never experienced before. So I noticed right away. And so at that time, when we started this new school I had been mentioning, I think it was 2010, 11. It may have been 11, 12. I have to check that. But I started to get, well, first let me say, because of all the bullying and hostility, especially when it comes to my children, but this is particularly the older child, I was doing a lot of stressing at that time. It was all new to me. I could handle dealing with all this hostility and bullying, but when I think of my child being like a 5-year-old child being exposed to that, a 6-year-old child, it makes me very, very upset. I was very upset at the time. I was crying a lot. I was stressing a lot, and I was talking to back my my sisters in quotes. Apparently I have sisters. I was talking to my sister about it back then. So all of a sudden I started to get these, and that's where it connects to these red lines on a solid background that reminds me of a cardiograph. I started to get all these calls, these messages at that time, just when the bullying and the hostility really reached a peak. I think it was about December when it started. November, December. I started to get a lot of these really long messages, and it sounded to me exactly. The first thing I thought of was a police radio. It sounded like the inside of a police vehicle or a fire truck. It sounded like dispatching, like police radio dispatching. And I was like, what is this? What is this all about? And the messages would be very long. Like I remember like having to sit there for like 10 minutes, and then I just gave up because it would just continue and continue. I think one was a half an hour long. And I was receiving these messages repeatedly. And at the time, I didn't understand the significance of this. I didn't understand, number one, how much worse things were going to get. I didn't know that I was going to suddenly be struck with very significant body changes, weight gain, um, very, very unusual, abnormal, unnatural pain presentation. I didn't know that the bullying was going to carry on so much longer because I was trying to tell people this against me and my children. So I didn't understand what was to come, and I didn't understand the significance of that at the time. And everything I've showed you is part of that in these videos. I deleted them. I should have recorded them, maybe videotape, whatever it is that you use for that. But I didn't understand. I didn't understand what it meant. Why I was getting these messages. So many of these messages sound like inside of a police vehicle. They sound like police radio, whatever. So yeah, and at a time too, I should mention, this is notable. I was getting death threats by women who were like, they were saying they were receptionists or secretaries for a doctor, and the doctor's name was I can't remember now. Corpse, Dr. Corpse. I'm calling for Dr. Corpse. You have an appointment with Dr. Corpse. So obviously, that's, to me, I would definitely construe that as a very scary death threat, especially because I don't know no Dr. Corpse. I've never known a Dr. Corpse, and I never asked to be called about a follow-up. She was saying she was calling for a follow-up to Dr. Corpse. I also received, I kept receiving messages of this Chinese woman. She was speaking Chinese, yelling Chinese, and I got a lot of these. There's a woman yelling Chinese, and this would go for these are long messages as well. And I just deleted those as well. I was like, okay, this is just part of all the bullying and hostility, right? So I would delete them, but I didn't realize how far and to what extent this was going to be unfolding into. It was it was so much more than I thought. Oh my God, I just, wow, if I'd known, I definitely would have recorded those messages. Yeah, so I mentioned the death threat type messages by mysterious doctors, the Chinese woman yelling on the phone. It sounded to me like she was yelling out profanities in Chinese or something. So yeah, that's what was happening at that time. And then shortly thereafter, these would start. Oh, by the way, I'd like to say that when I say things are like, the fact that I was stressing out at that time, crying, etc., just being, showing normal human behavior, normal human emotion when you know that your child is being bullied, and then when you find out that people at the staff working with the child are refusing to acknowledge it in any way, and they're actually being part of it. It's very scary. It's very upsetting, and so that was being all reflected back to me in these messages. That's what these messages were doing. They were reflecting back how I was feeling at home. Those messages were reflecting how I was feeling at home, and the talking I was doing to people about it. And that's why I always say everything I say and do at home is reflected back to me. So then I'm going to move on because I think it's going to get too long again. So basically, then shortly thereafter, I started getting these. Now, this is what the Fuck Night videos were formerly. They started out as these types of images that would just appear erratically, just appear out of nowhere. And so, as I mentioned in my other videos, they would look like the peaks and valleys of a cardiographic image. So that's what I was getting all the time. This was coming up. These were coming up mysteriously all the time, interrupting. Whenever I picked up the phone, it would just appear. And then, like I was mentioning before, I couldn't print it off. Now I was saying that probably the printer. I've experienced a lot of hacking with my printers. I think what was happening was they were just disappearing too quickly. When I put the screen of the cell phone down on the scanner of the printer, the image had already disappeared. That's hacking. The image had very quickly disappeared as soon as I put the cell phone down on the scanner to be photocopied. So, and that wasn't happening with other stuff. It was not, the phone was not going black that fast. It was only when I wanted to print off these types of images that the phone would go black very, very quickly. Also, it could have been the printer. That's possible because I've experienced a lot of hacking with my printer. The last printer we had was giving me all kinds of artwork. I'm just going to give you some quick examples. That's one. Then there's me underwater. That's pretty fancy stuff. That's me there at the top in that box, and then the lower box, that's me, looks like I'm underwater. I got bubbles, there's bubbles there and everything. That's a carbon copy of that. And then there's this one, that's a close-up. It looks like somebody has declared me as dead, and they're pulling the whatever it is over my head. It looks like some kind of blanket type thing is being pulled over me, over my head. So yeah, and yeah, so I've definitely experienced hacking with my printer. There's also blood splatters, like I wasn't getting any color, and then all of a sudden there would just be a splatter of red that looked like blood on one of my photocopies. So anyway, that just explains why these images were not, I could not copy these images, and I have to do these sketchy renditions, is because either number one, the printers are hacked. Number two, and I have more evidence of that as well. And also too, the screen was blacking out too fast. The image was just disappearing too fast. As soon as I put it down on the printer, it would be gone. Now, onto the next thing. So basically, the gist is, this is what those fuck night images, the red sketches, or the sketches with the stark red line, were formerly, they looked more like this. This is what I was getting. Then it became more of then it started to evolve. It became more of a scribbling, like a child's scribbling, a child's doodling. So then it evolved more into that. And last but not least, I want to say, this is important, that this also reminds me of the pressure when me and my children started to be bullying, encounter a lot of hostility. There was suddenly, after when I started being hacked, and I started talking about the hacking, all of a sudden I found that everybody started to I felt this pressure that I needed to see a psychiatrist. So I felt extremely, and I knew I'm very victimized. So as soon as I started talking about hacking and showing evidence of the hacking, in addition to all the bullying that was happening, then all of a sudden everything was being turned against me. So here I am trying to get help, and then all these women are saying, I need, like my doctor who I've known for 30 years, she never told me I needed so badly to see a psychiatrist before. Then she started to tell me that I should really see a psychiatrist. It's absolutely so sexist. Like, I didn't know women were that sexist. I really did. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that women are that sexist. I expected men to be that sexist, not women. So then all of a sudden, and then my sister started, and then my sister's, that's one of the reasons I don't talk to my family anymore. They started, I need to see a psychiatrist. So I'm documenting all this stuff. I'm providing proof to them, videos, tape recordings, anything you can think of. Camera. I was using my camera. My computer when I could, but remember I was hacked the whole time too, right? So, but I was really persevering, and they're turning it against me, telling me that I am paranoid, delusional, and I need to see a psychiatrist. The Dr. Mackenzie Help did that to me, like I've never I've seen in my life. I've never could never even conceive of how horrible an ordeal that I would be faced with that doctor at Mackenzie Health. and he, so basically, this kind of reminds me of that too. It's this, oh, there's something wrong with you. Um, it could be, then there's pregnancy themes, like all these. I'm inundated with these pregnancy themes. I gained 30 pounds very suddenly, um, and my whole body's changed. This happened like very suddenly. Just because I turned 50 doesn't mean I have to get fat. Like the month I turned 50, excuse me, um, like it just, and none of it makes sense. So yeah, so there was a lot of this pressure. I felt all this pressure that there was something wrong with me, and I need to go get help. I'm the one that needs to go get help. So yeah, that is definitely all. It's all connected. And I'm going to stop it now because I don't want it to be as long as the other one.